Hey, cool guys. Let's talk osteoarthritis. Sorry, it's taking me forever to get through this book. It turns out it's pretty hard to okay, chapter 16, dietary recommendations in osteoarthritis for the new millennium, and this is Peter Bales' book on osteoarthritis from 2008, was it? Keep reminding myself. Yeah, Prometheus books. Oh, whoa, I'm wearing the wrong glasses. Well, we'll try anyway. Oh, wait. I better just go get the good glasses. Sorry, hold on. Okay, so as discussed earlier, poor nutrition leads to increased inflammation and oxidative stress on the body. In the body, it causes metabolic imbalances that deteriorate joints, leading to the development of osteoarthritis. In previous chapters, I have presented the most recent scientific findings that support this theory. In this chapter, I will discuss my dietary recommendations for the treatment of osteoarthritis, which are based on the latest scientific evidence. Traditionally, doctors have treated osteoarthritis with drugs. There is currently a renewed interest among scientists in using naturally occurring compounds to treat diseases such as osteoarthritis. These substances have been shown in both double-blind clinical trials as well as personal experience by doctors and patients to be beneficial and to have few, if any, side effects. It is important to also understand that as of 2008, only nutritional substances have been shown in scientific studies to slow down and reverse osteoarthritis. Laboratory manufactured drugs have never been shown to have any positive effect on the underlying causes of osteoarthritis. They only relieve pain. In fact, laboratory manufactured steroids and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs have been shown to actually accelerate the progression of osteoarthritis when used for long periods of time. Think about it. The most commonly prescribed drugs by doctors not only do not help reverse or cure the disease, but they may actually be harmful with long-term use. Unhealthy diets increase inflammation. A number of scientific studies have shown that people who have good diets consisting of anti-inflammatory fats and healthful vegetables have lower inflammation in their body. Inflammation is measured by the blood levels of the protein ESR and CRP, which are increased in states of high inflammation. The current epidemics of obesity and metabolic syndrome are a result of unhealthy diets that increase the inflammation in the body. These same poor dietary habits and obesity increase the generation of free radicals and degrading chemicals in our joint cartilage. The recent explosion of osteoarthritis that physicians have seen over the last 20 years is fueled by our unhealthy eating habits. The result is that surgical replacement of arthritic joints at younger and younger ages has skyrocketed in the last 15 years. The two most dangerous conditions in our bodies predisposing us to increased degeneration of our organs, including our joints, are increased blood sugar levels and increased levels of unhealthy fats. Americans consume more refined sugar per year than almost any other nation. The consumption of synthetic trans fats is ruining our health. In 2007, the city of New York passed laws designed to limit the use of synthetic trans fats by restaurants. This trend will undoubtedly be followed by other cities. The chronic state of high blood sugar in our bodies as a result of our heavy consumption of soft drinks and other junk food generates increased inflammation and increased oxidative stress. These detrimental effects have been scientifically proven. The sugar accumulating in the bloodstream has many detrimental effects, including the development of diabetes, nerve damage, and cartilage damage. As discussed earlier, elevated blood sugar destroys cartilage by creating sugar-coated proteins called AGEs. These act in turn on genes in cartilage cells that code for cartilage destructive substances. In this way, our diet affects the function of our genes. AGEs also bind to cartilage, weakening it and turning it a sickly yellowish color. Recommendation number 1, limit your intake of refined sugars, soft drinks, candy bars, and other sweets. Eliminate unhealthy trans fats from your diet completely. Trans fats are listed on food packaging as partially hydrogenated oils and are contained in cake mixes, potato chips, and other non-perishable foods. Limit the consumption of saturated fats found in red meats and increase the intake of healthful nuts, monounsaturated olive oil, and omega-3 fats found in cold water fish and flaxseed. Poor nutrition leads to a vicious cycle of increased inflammation and rusting in our bodies. This has led to the explosion of obesity and unhealthy blood sugar and cholesterol levels that is fueling the new epidemic of cartilage deterioration and osteoarthritis development. My experience in the treatment of osteoarthritis patients in my own clinical practice is that they are very interested in how nutrition affects their disease. People are tired of being prescribed drugs with all their side effects to treat their joint pain. They are looking for new information and fresh approaches to their disease. Traditionally, complementary and alternative medicines have been in high demand among osteoarthritis patients. When I see patients in my practice in their early stages of osteoarthritis, I use the nutritional recommendations I've listed in this chapter to arrest and reverse the progression of this disease. As I have shown, a number of quality scientific studies support the use of nutritional interventions in osteoarthritis. Page 188, Part 4, my dietary recommendations for osteoarthritis. Do we really need vitamin and mineral supplements? I am often asked in my own practice, Doctor, if I have a healthy diet, why do I need extra supplements? The answer to this question is that we are constantly bombarded by many man-made chemical substances such as environmental pollution, pesticides, and unhealthy food preservatives. We need to supplement our diets with vitamins and minerals in order to ward off disease. Eating a good diet is the keystone to good health. Vitamins and minerals taken in supplement form complement a good diet and are important because of genetic variations between individuals in handling the many pollutants we come in contact with. As you recall from previous chapters, our bodies detoxify the many thousands of chemicals they come into contact by using detoxification enzyme systems. Vitamins and minerals aid these systems, helping them do their jobs efficiently. The more toxic our environment is and the worse our diets are, the more important it is to supplement our diets with vitamins and minerals. Scientific studies have also shown that the body's ability to detoxify itself differs from person to person. Some people are able to rid of toxins better than others. These people naturally require less nutritional support in the form of vitamins and minerals. The problem is that currently there is no test to accurately determine whether an individual is a good detoxifier. The genetic testing required is not yet sophisticated enough to do this. The ability to detoxify is determined by our genetic makeup. Recent genetic studies are beginning to show that single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are small variations in the structure of key genes among individuals, control our detoxifying ability. New research has also shown that larger doses of vitamins and minerals than what has been traditionally recommended by doctors are required to restore the function of the often inefficient and overwhelmed detoxification enzyme systems and to help prevent the development of degenerative diseases. Recommendation number 2. We need to maintain a low fasting blood sugar level, 75 to 90 milligram percentage, and a weight within the parameters of a body mass index of less than 25 and body fat less than 16 to 18%. The blood sugar level is the concentration of sugar in the blood, which is measured after fasting for 8 hours. BMI is calculated using the formula below. Note the weight is in pounds and height is in inches. Weight times 703 equals BMI divided by height times height. 25 to 29 is BMI is overweight. 30 to 39 is obese. 40 is extremely obese. Greater than 40. Low blood sugar and low body fat content will go a long way in guaranteeing that we do not have dangerously high levels of inflammation in our bodies. Nutritional substances help stop and reverse the progression of osteoarthritis. Nutrients that have been shown by the latest research to be effective in stopping and reversing the progression of osteoarthritis are called nutraceuticals. These substances are normally found in nature and in our bodies and are not toxic as drugs are. When using nutrients to combat osteoarthritis, it is important to use combinations of these nutrients that work well together. We need to find the proper balance of beneficial nutrients and use them for a long period of time. Unlike drugs, which are fast-acting, nutrients work slowly to exert their beneficial effects. Recommendation number 3. The following nutraceuticals can be used to decrease the damage of osteoarthritis in joint cartilage. These can be found in most health food stores, and I recommend using brand names made by reputable companies. Woo, here we go, a big list. Alpha-lipoic acid, 600 milligrams twice a day. Coenzyme Q10, 60 milligrams twice a day. L-carnitine, 1,000 milligrams twice a day. N-acetylcysteine, 1,000 milligrams twice a day. I got some at Gypsy's Lindsay on super sale. Like a great deal. Yay for me. Vegan. Okay. Acetyl L-carnitine, Alcar, 500 to 400 milligrams per day. How is that different than L-carnitine? This is acetyl L-carnitine versus L-carnitine. I don't know. Niacinamide. Don't know it. Sounds like niacin, but it's myosin. 250 milligrams 4 times per day. DHA from fish oils, 2 grams per day. EPA from fish oils, 1 gram per day. Selenium, yay, I've been taking Brazil nuts, yay, 200 micrograms per day. Glutathione, where am I going to get that? Maybe it's in a lot of things, maybe nuts or something. 300 to 600 milligrams per day. Vitamin C, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams per day. Vitamin D, 400 to 1,200 IU per day. Vitamin E, 400 to 800 IU per day. In order to support our energy-producing mitochondria and to lower inflammatory proteins in our blood while lowering oxidative stress, we need to have optimum levels of B-complex vitamins. Recommendation number 4. The following B-complex vitamins are useful for the treatment of osteoarthritis. B-complex vitamins are important in supporting the detoxification enzymes and also in decreasing oxidative stress in cartilage cells. Yay! B6, 25 micrograms per day. B12, 1,000 micrograms per day. Folic acid, 800 micrograms per day. Recommendation number 5. I recommend the daily use of the quadruple combination of the following 4 supplements in people with osteoarthritis or with a strong family history of the disease in order to control pain and also prevent progressive collapse of the joint. Basically, wow, okay. Glucosamine HCl, 1,500 milligrams per day. Chondroitin, 1,200 milligrams per day. MSM, 1,500 milligrams per day. SAMe, 200 to 600 milligrams per day. Okay, so I have been taking MSM. I'm recently started taking SAMe, and I'm recently started a vegan glucosamine, but I do not yet have a vegan chondroitin, and I should have started this all like 20 years ago because I had a strong family history of osteoarthritis. What is the best diet for osteoarthritis? The scientific evidence outlined in this book supports supports diet as a very important determinant of the inflammatory status of the body. A diet loaded with sugar leads to the development of prediabetes and organ damage. Eventually, a heavy consumption of sugar in the diet leads to the development of diabetes with its many life-altering complications. Some estimates predict that up to 1/4 of children born in the year 2000 are destined to develop diabetes unless their diets are drastically changed in the next decade. This is a very alarming statistic. Our unhealthy diets are fueling the development of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and atherosclerosis. Recommendation number 6. Osteoarthritis patients should adhere to the Mediterranean diet outlined in Chapter 8. This diet is loaded with good fats and is low in sugar. It is high in healthy fats such as olive oil and omega-3s. It has been shown to lower blood cholesterol and triglyceride levels, increasing the blood levels of good fats and decrease the overall inflammatory state of the body. Why is weight loss important in the treatment of osteoarthritis? In traditional medicine, weight loss is thought to improve osteoarthritis symptoms by decreasing the weight placed on our joints and thus lowering stress-related damage to the cartilage. As shown in this book, obesity is also related to osteoarthritis in complex biochemical pathways that involve increased inflammation and increased oxidative stress. While it is true that weight loss and the maintenance of an optimum weight level of BMI less than 25 lowers the mechanical stresses on our joints, it more importantly lowers inflammation and decreases the oxidative stress that predispose us to osteoarthritis. Recommendation number 7. There is very good scientific evidence that weight loss improves osteoarthritis symptoms in overweight patients. Research has also shown that a combination of moderate weight loss and moderate exercise, such as 20 to 30 minutes per day, 5 days per week of walking or aerobics, improve the symptoms of osteoarthritis and decrease joint pain more than weight loss or exercise alone do. I recommend weight training and aerobic exercises 3 to 5 times per week and maintaining a BMI below 25. The dietary recommendations I have made in this chapter are based on the concept known as evidence-based medicine. Evidence-based medicine refers to the practice of medicine that is supported by basic clinical research, not just traditional anecdotal treatments or physician preference. More good quality research studies need to be done in the future to elucidate the benefits of nutraceuticals in the treatment of diseases. How to prevent the development of osteoarthritis. The best way to avoid developing degenerative joint disease is by adopting the following strategies. Maintain an optimal body weight with BMI of 25 or less. Eat a diet low in sugar and high in omega-3 fats. Maintain physical fitness. Aerobic exercise should be done at least 20 to 30 minutes per day for 3 to 4 days per week. Supplement this with 2 or 3 days per week of muscle strengthening. Avoid the development of excess inflammation and oxidative stress in the body by eating healthy, colorful vegetables, lean proteins, and supplementing your diet with vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients. Use prophylactic nutritional supplements such as glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and SAMe if you have a strong family history of osteoarthritis. Maintain a healthy alkaline pH in your body by eliminating unhealthy trans fats, refined sugars, white flour, soft drinks, and juices. Minimize high impact and contact sports after the age of 40 to avoid repetitive sports injuries. Ooh, okay. Ooh, wow. Wow. Oh, okay. Maintain a waist size of less than 36 inches for men and 30 inches for women. Maintain a normal blood sugar level to avoid developing insulin resistance and diabetes. These preventative measures are more powerful than drugs in treating and preventing osteoarthritis. Okay. Part 5. It is time for a paradigm shift in medicine. Chapter 17, page 197. Oh, we're so close to being done. So the book has just 21 pages more. We need a paradigm shift in medicine. We need to attack degenerative diseases such as osteoarthritis with more holistic treatments that will be safer and more cost-effective in the long run. Expensive drugs, high-tech surgical procedures, and other invasive treatments are major factors that have led to our expensive and increasingly unaffordable healthcare system. Paradigm shifts have occurred in the history of medicine and science in the past. Today, many doctors and lay people realize that it is necessary to change the way medicine is practiced. It is time for medical practitioners to change the way new scientific evidence and discoveries are viewed and implemented. The concept of paradigm shift was popularized by Thomas Kuhn, a physicist and philosopher of science, in his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, in which he explains that scientific progress occurs as old beliefs are challenged by new ways of looking at problems. He describes science as having long, stable periods during which most scientists hold the same core beliefs and look at scientific data through the same colored lenses. These periods are interrupted by paradigm shifts, during which scientists learn new ways to think about old problems by questioning long-held beliefs. This builds a momentum of dissent in the scientific community, and eventually the old paradigm is replaced by a new one. Paradigm shift becomes necessary in science as more research is done in a certain discipline, and new knowledge is accumulated, giving rise to inconsistencies in that these findings cannot be reconciled with the old paradigm. Scientists working in the old paradigm cannot deal with the new scientific evidence and tend to discard it. We are currently in such a paradigm shift in terms of the new advancements being made in the understanding of chronic and degenerative diseases. We need to incorporate the basic science discoveries in nutrition and genetics more efficiently into our healthcare delivery system in order to halt the epidemics of obesity and degenerative joint disease in this country. In many major medical centers today, some of the busiest surgeons are the ones performing weight loss surgery, which was practically unheard of 10 or 15 years ago. This fact in itself is very telling of our current obesity epidemic. We must also stop focusing on outdated 19th and 20th century principles of a single disease with a single magic bullet cure. This approach will not work for the complex diseases of the 21st century. These diseases, such as dysfunction in our metabolism and the degeneration of our organs, require a deeper understanding of what exactly is going wrong in the body. Drugs designed in the lab should not be our main weapon in treating degenerative diseases. We need to stop praying at the altar of pharmaceutical wonder drugs and instead adapt the safer alternatives described in this book for medical use. The public is inundated by drug advertisements in the media. Physicians have bought into the belief that laboratory-designed drugs are superior to any other method of fighting disease. The truth is that a holistic approach that integrates basic scientific knowledge from current nutrition and genetics research in fighting osteoarthritis is more effective in treating the early stages of this disease, preventing its progression, and ultimately reversing its course. As I have shown, there is a large body of nutritional and genetic research that needs to be effectively incorporated into the everyday treatment of patients. Organized medicine does not recognize the benefits of proper nutrition in fighting specific diseases. Vitamins, minerals, and nutraceuticals are also powerful in producing a disease-free metabolic state. Basic scientific research in nutrition and biochemistry is continuing to elucidate the powerful ways nutrition can fight degenerative disease. The problem is that the public is not being properly educated by the current medical system about these new discoveries in nutritional genetics. the nutritional treatment of degenerative diseases, and the dangers of runaway inflammation and metabolic syndrome in the body. Many economic pressures prevent physicians from adopting a more holistic approach when treating patients. As a result of the pressure in modern medicine to see large numbers of patients each day, doctors are often rushed through the visits and can only address serious issues as they occur. They are focused on prescribing drugs to treat health conditions. Discussions of alternative treatments are difficult to undertake in the limited time of an office visit. Thus, some restructuring is needed in the way patients are screened for diseases and on how they are educated about their health. In an integrated health system, this can happen through patient seminars and by group visits of multiple patients with the same condition, where education can be interactive. Restructuring healthcare to address chronic diseases is important so that diseases can be diagnosed early and treated more effectively. Also, because doctors are becoming more specialized, they are more focused on their own narrow fields of interest and can lose perspective on their patients' overall health. As a result of these and other factors, many physicians do not fulfill their mission as health educators. I believe the public is hungry for a more holistic and integrated approach to their health. They want doctors to help them stay healthy, not just treat illnesses as they develop. They do not go to see a doctor simply to have their symptoms treated with the prescription of an expensive and often potentially toxic pharmaceutical drug. This is one reason why many prescriptions written by overworked physicians go unfilled. This is also one of the reasons that chiropractic and alternative medical approaches are so popular. These practitioners tend to be more holistic, more hands-on, and they spend more time with the patients than traditional medical doctors do. What about the great advances that have been made in medicine over the last half century? When we look critically at this issue, other than the advances made in surgical treatments and early detection, the medical approach to degenerative diseases has failed to effectively treat diseases such as osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritic patients are primarily treated with pain-relieving drugs until it is time to perform joint surgery. This is the current state-of-the-art treatment of this disease. Until physicians become better advocates for maintaining the health of their patients rather than reactively fighting the disease whenever it crops up, medicine will fall short of fulfilling its mission. By the time disease becomes apparent, with the development of symptoms of pain and swelling, significant damage has already occurred in the body. New research into nutrition and genetics will allow us to diagnose and treat the early metabolic and chemical imbalances that occur in the body before they develop into serious diseases. This research makes possible the early diagnosis and treatment of the imbalances that result from poor nutrition, exposure to environmental toxins, and stress. Furthermore, we are only beginning to learn how genetic predispositions manifested in the form of genes' single nucleotide polymorphisms interact with the environment to determine the state of an individual's health. As a result of the epidemics of obesity and metabolic syndrome, which accelerate osteoarthritis development, the typical osteoarthritic patient presents at a younger age than in the past. That person is usually first treated by a family doctor with pain medications, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and physical therapy. When these treatments no longer prove effective, the patient is referred to an orthopedic surgeon who may treat with cortisone and other injections before finally resorting to surgery. As can be seen from the above scenario, the major, often invasive treatments currently offered to patients treat only the symptoms. No new treatments have been developed in the last 10 to 15 years for these patients, even though basic scientific research has rapidly increased our knowledge at the cellular and genetic level at this time. The current medical paradigm treats degenerative diseases with drugs. Our current medical paradigm emphasizes the use of drugs in treating degenerative diseases such as osteoarthritis. Because of this mindset, we have not made many strides in incorporating the new scientific research findings regarding inflammation and the interaction of nutrition with our genes in our medical treatments. More clinical research is needed to validate the many basic science and animal research findings that relate to nutrition, genetics, and inflammation. There's been little interest in doing this type of research in the nutritional treatment of disease. The reason for this lack of interest is that the search for new drugs, which is the holy grail of scientific research, has overshadowed these efforts. Part of the reason for this overemphasis on drugs is that the pharmaceutical industry provides much of the funding for clinical trials. The industry's emphasis is on promoting research that develops new patentable drugs, even though nutritional treatments and nutraceuticals are much cheaper and safer alternatives. What are the weaknesses of the current medical paradigm? Medicine's focus is not in preventing disease, but rather in treating disease once it has occurred. This acute care medicine is not well equipped to deal with the complex chronic diseases of the 21st century because when the patient presents with the disease, the chemical imbalances at the cellular and organ level have often gone undetected for a long time. These cell and chemical imbalances are not best treated with drugs, which are often designed to treat only symptoms and not the underlying chemical imbalance. While our basic scientific knowledge of diseases has continued to grow in the last decade, the translation of this new knowledge into clinical practice is very slow. This is the case in the treatment of osteoarthritis. Another weakness in our system is that its emphasis on acute care does not address well the best ways to attack chronic degenerative diseases. Our system is effectively focused on crisis intervention rather than prevention. It is focused on finding a single magic bullet cure for diseases, which was more appropriate when dealing with infectious diseases of the last century. A single drug can be effective in treating a single infectious disease, such as tuberculosis or staph infection, but the degenerative diseases of the 21st century are not going to be solved using this mentality. Our current system lacks an integrated and holistic approach needed in addressing the chemical imbalances that cause chronic disease. It is focused on physician subspecialization and on crisis intervention rather than on disease prevention. Medicine rewards conformity rather than innovation. This conformity of modern medicine is best highlighted by the widely used standardized treatment guidelines, which sacrifice the biochemical individuality of the patient and undermine the clinical judgments of the doctor. They are being pushed by medical societies and insurance companies as a panacea in improving healthcare outcomes and controlling costs. Clinical guidelines erroneously assume that all patients are alike and they all need the same drugs or the same surgical treatment. Genetic research, on the other hand, is showing that there is large genetic variability among individuals in how they respond to their environment, stress, and drugs. These differences are expressed in the form of single nucleotide polymorphisms among individuals. This genetic variability demands a more personalized approach to each patient and requires that physicians be able to integrate many sources of information in order to individualize treatment. Okay. Defining high-quality medicine. Quality in medicine has been defined as a combination of a positive clinical outcome, for example, curing a disease and the value of the consumer of the care delivered, to the consumer of the care delivered. When we analyze the quality of medicine provided today, a number of shortcomings become apparent. In terms of both our diagnostic abilities and our surgical treatments, we are very advanced. We have state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment such as MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, which increase our diagnostic accuracy and help save lives. But when we look at the quality of treatments offered to patients, modern medicine starts to show its weaknesses. Physicians prescribe many drugs which can have serious side effects, often for less than life-threatening conditions. Very often, the side effects of these drugs are more problematic than the symptoms they were prescribed to treat. These are referred to as lifestyle drugs and are used to enhance normal function rather than save lives or fight disease. These include Viagra as well as numerous duplications of drugs by pharmaceutical companies in an effort to gain market share. Elderly patients taking multiple drugs often experience significant illness or even death from these drugs, even though they were properly prescribed and appropriately taken. As stated previously, a weakness in modern medicine affecting quality is that it does not effectively incorporate new scientific advances into clinical practice in a timely manner. It also lacks an integrated approach to healthcare delivery. Healthcare is often fragmented, with tests and drugs being duplicated by multiple healthcare providers a patient sees and heavily influenced by the threat of litigation. Modern medicine is not good at appropriately identifying and treating the early chemical imbalances that occur in the body as a result of poor nutrition, stress, and environmental pollution. These often go undetected, eventually leading to full-blown disease. When the disease is finally apparent, the treating doctor is behind the eight ball and often resorts to controlling pain and other symptoms with the use of expensive and potentially toxic drugs. Because doctors are busy putting out the fires of their patients presenting with diseases, they do not often have the time to appropriately counsel their patients on proper nutrition, avoidance of dangerous habits, prevention of disease, and the benefits of aerobic exercise and strength training. In conclusion, because medicine does not treat chronic diseases in an integrated way, but instead treats only the symptoms of disease as they arise, the current medical system is not well equipped to anticipate the development of diseases and stop the early chemical imbalances in the body that will eventually lead to full-blown disease. By treating diseases when they present at later stages, when multiple symptoms and organs are malfunctioning, is quite costly in terms of dollars spent. This is one of the reasons why the United States, even though it boasts the lowest per capita spending on healthcare in the world, ranks below the top in the overall health and life expectancy. Huh. Huh. A paradigm shift is needed in modern medicine. And, okay. A paradigm shift is needed in modern medicine. This is needed to address the epidemics of obesity, degenerative disease, and the detrimental effects of poor nutrition. Many people don't realize that we have an epidemic of malnutrition in this country. When people think of malnutrition, they think of starving and emaciated children in Africa. What is not widely understood is that even though they are overweight, obese people in this country are also malnourished because of the many calories that they consume have very poor nutritional value and are loaded with toxic food additives and preservatives. The old paradigm doctors are working with calls for the use of drugs in treating degenerative diseases such as osteoarthritis. Drugs worked well in the old paradigm of a single magic bullet killing a single foreign invader, as seen in infectious diseases. They are not sufficient, though, to address the complex conditions of metabolic syndrome, obesity, and inflammation. We are now entering a crisis stage in medical science, a turning point in which the existing disease paradigm cannot adequately solve the epidemic health conditions of our time. In the case of osteoarthritis, except for surgical treatments, which have shown great advancements in the last 20 years, we have much to learn in the prevention and medical treatment of this disease. The new genetic revolution, with the unraveling of the mysteries of the nearly 100,000 human genes by the Human Genome Project, is heralding a new era in medicine in which we will be able to better identify and treat chronic diseases. New knowledge has accumulated showing that nutrition has powerful effects on our genes. This new field of nutrigenomics is exploding with new discoveries that will be useful in treating the underlying biochemical and genetic imbalances involved in degenerative diseases such as osteoarthritis. In order to make real progress in curing the degenerative diseases of our time, we must find new ways to interpret and implement basic scientific discoveries. Currently, new knowledge is not being integrated into clinical practice because it does not fit the old paradigm regarding when disease occurs in the body and how best to treat it. Conflict exists because scientists look at the same set of data from a different point of view. There is much controversy regarding the causes and effects of common medical conditions. Are heart attacks caused primarily by high cholesterol levels, or are they primarily an inflammatory disease, with cholesterol playing a secondary role? Is degenerative joint disease and osteoarthritis best treated by drugs or by nutritional and nutraceutical interventions? These examples highlight the conflicts that exist in modern medicine, in which clinical problems are looked at differently by physicians functioning under the old paradigm than they are by those working in the new emerging paradigm. Page 206, our healthcare system is in crisis. Our healthcare system consumes a large portion of our gross national product, and its high expenses threatening our economic growth and prosperity. Furthermore, it does not adequately address the epidemic conditions of obesity, cancer, metabolic syndrome, and degenerative disease. Even though we spend a great deal of money on healthcare, we are not winning the battle in these chronic conditions. There are currently about 20 million people suffering from diabetes in our country. About 1 in 7 people can be classified as pre-diabetic, with elevated blood insulin levels and blood sugar levels. Increased inflammation and metabolic syndrome are rampant, and the current generation of children born in the United States is the first generation in history expected to have a lower life expectancy than their parents. These statistics are frightening and are fueling a debate among scientists regarding the best way to implement healthcare changes to fight chronic diseases. Throwing more money in research that looks for answers using the old paradigm will not likely be successful in addressing these epidemic conditions. Dr. David Eddy, known as one of the leaders of evidence-based medicine, has proposed that only 15 to 25% of what doctors do in current medical practice is backed by hard scientific evidence. Eddy further suggests that in our high-tech healthcare system, estimated to cost about $2 trillion per year, there is no evidence that our current treatments are really any better than other, cheaper alternatives. My point here is that even though in the current medical paradigm, drugs and surgical treatments are significantly valued above nutritional treatments, as has been shown by Dr. Eddy, only a small portion, 15 to 25% of what doctors do in medical practice has been thoroughly scientifically studied and been found to be the most effective treatment. A paradigm shift of how doctors approach diseases is warranted because I believe there is enough scientific evidence proving the benefits of nutrition in treating and preventing disease. Ethics and genetic individuality. Finally, ethical principles must guide a move toward medical treatment of patients that respects each individual's genetic uniqueness. New research is proving the genetic individuality among people, and this must be incorporated into the ways we deliver healthcare. A disturbing trend is the idea that medical care can become standardized. The standardization of medical care is a popular concept proposed by think tanks and medical societies, which propose creating an assembly line management of patients in which they are processed in large healthcare centers and are given genetic treatments based on the use of popular clinical practice guidelines. This cookbook approach is not supported by the new genetic research that is elegantly showing how the genetic individuality interacts with people's environment and nutrition in causing diseases. Generic one-size-fits-all treatment approaches, as practiced in the prescription of drugs in which all patients are given a standardized dose of a drug, are not supported by these new and emerging scientific discoveries. Part 6, new genetic fields that will lead to answers for osteoarthritis. Oh, okay, I guess I can finish this book. My voice is kind of scratchy today. What? Can I do it? I think I can. Let's keep going, guys. Chapter 18, page 211. We are only just beginning to decode and understand the human genome. The DNA technology advancements that form the basis of the science of genomics include polymerase chain reaction technology and the development of automated DNA sequencers. These are technologies that can process large amounts of DNA material looking for a specific gene. Gene chip technology is an evolving field that combines computer, microprocessor chip technology, and genetic engineering biology. Gene chips are built using a process known as photolithography, which is the same process used to manufacture microprocessors. The power of gene chips lies in the fact that they are packed with genetic probes that bind to DNA, similar to the way transistors are packed into a computer chip. One chip can pack up to 400,000 individual probes, which are applied to decoding the human genetic code, which includes about 100,000 known genes. The ability in the last decade to perform high-speed gene sequencing using computers has fueled the speed at which new genetic information about human disease is gathered. Gene chip technology has the potential to speed up the change in the way diseases are treated, and even holds the possibility of reclassifying diseases as a result of our improved understanding of their causes. Currently in medicine, we often treat only the symptoms of diseases because we are unable to identify their underlying root causes. In the future, we will be able to run a sample of cells through a gene chip scanner and analyze an individual's predisposition to certain diseases and what treatments we should use to treat and even prevent disease. The emergence of these new genetic technologies also highlights the ability of our genes to interact and even be shaped by our environment and our nutritional state. In the old paradigm, genes are looked at as fixed DNA sequences that seal our fate with regard to the development of certain diseases. The new paradigm that is emerging through gene research is that of biologic potentiality. This refers to the idea that genes confer a potential that can be dynamically altered by environmental factors such as nutrition. The concept is central to nutrigenomics, which studies the ability of nutrition to directly talk to our genes and affect their action. Nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics is an emerging field aimed at unlocking the mechanisms by which nutrition is able to directly alter the function and expression of our genes. Nutrients stimulate the activation of genes so that they produce hormones, enzymes, and other biologically active substances that influence our health. Much of this book has been concerned with discussing these substances as they relate to osteoarthritis. People have genetic variability, and that is why different people respond to nutritional and other environmental stimuli differently. For instance, researchers have shown that a diet low in the beneficial omega-3 fats is associated with a strong inflammatory cell environment in people with specific SNPs in the gene coding for the enzyme arachidonates 5-lipooxygenase. In individuals possessing this particular SNP variation, a dietary insufficiency of omega-3 fats can have detrimental consequences that are not seen in people with a different SNP variation in that gene. The power of nutrigenomics lies in the ability of medicine in the future to identify those people who are at high risk for developing a disease. These individuals can then be treated with specific nutritional and pharmaceutical agents to prevent disease. These advances will involve use of gene chip analysis and the technology of gene sequencing. Large segments of DNA containing many genes will be studied simultaneously to determine how the expression and activation of certain genes is affected by nutritional and other treatments. In osteoarthritis, gene chip analysis has shown that osteoarthritic cartilage cells show increased activation of genes that code for inflammatory and degrading cytokines compared to normal cells. These also include the increased expression of MMPs, which break down cartilage. Future studies with gene chips will be able to detect which genes are turned off and on in healthy versus diseased cartilage cells. Once these are identified, treatments can be developed that will turn on good genes while blocking the effects of inflammatory and cartilage degrading genes. Gene therapy. Another promising field in the treatment of osteoarthritis is that of gene therapy. Gene therapy research in arthritis has focused on IL-1 and other inflammatory compounds that are overproduced in the joints of persons with osteoarthritis. The blocking of IL-1 will be beneficial in preventing the joint destruction associated with arthritis. Special viruses called safe viruses have been genetically engineered to carry a gene in their own DNA that codes for a substance that blocks IL-1. That substance, known as IL-1 receptor antagonist, blocks the IL-1 by preventing it from stimulating its receptor in cartilage cells. Nutrigenetics. Nutrigenetics is a related field that looks at how different nutrients affect our genes. The single nucleotide polymorphisms in our genes determine how we respond to different diets. SNPs have been discovered when genes taken from different individuals are analyzed using techniques such as the ones discussed above. Genes which normally contain about 3,000 DNA base pairs have been shown to vary in only one base pair between different individuals. Certain SNPs can have a dramatic effect on how an individual responds to certain drugs, nutritional substances, or other chemical triggers. These SNP differences are the reason some people respond well to a drug while others experience terrible side effects. A technique known as high throughput genotyping can be used to study the effect of diet and specific nutrients on people possessing different genetic variations. One of the most well-studied SNPs is that of the enzyme NTHFR. This is an important enzyme that must function well in order to clear the inflammatory substance homocysteine from our blood. When individuals with a small change in the DNA sequence coding for this gene are subjected to a diet low in folate, a B complex vitamin, they experience a significant detrimental elevation in their blood homocysteine levels. A diet low in B complex vitamins can predispose these individuals to increased inflammation and the development of heart disease. Another well-known SNP is that of the PPAR gamma receptor. In this case, a particular SNP variant predisposes people to developing increased blood insulin levels where that individual is given a highly inflammatory diet. Nutrition not only controls the action of our genes, it further acts in attaching to our DNA and causing it to function differently. This effect, known as an epigenetic effect, as previously discussed, is inheritable and can be passed on to our children. This epigenetic change is an important way in which our DNA is altered by the foods we eat and the environmental toxins we are exposed to. Thus, poor nutrition not only affects our genes in the present, but it also results in long-lasting changes in the DNA that we will pass on to our children. Oh my gosh. Pharmacogenomics. Pharmacogenomics is an emerging field that studies how an individual's unique genetic makeup relates to his or her ability to respond to, process, and eliminate drugs from the body. In this field, genetic engineering techniques are used to test a patient's blood in order to determine the optimal drug dose for that person and whether the drug should be given at all to that person. A drop of a patient's blood is placed on a gene chip, which can be tested to profile that person's interaction with the drug. For instance, one can examine the level of functioning of the important detoxification enzyme systems. As we recall from previous chapters, a person's detoxification systems may become overwhelmed when they are exposed to unhealthy food and other environmental toxins. That individual may not be able to effectively clear a drug from their system, allowing for the buildup of the drug and the development of unwanted side effects. Determinations can also be made from this genetic analysis as to what the optimal dose of the drug should be for that person. In the future, we will be able to respect a person's genetic individuality rather than prescribing a standardized dose to everybody. Proteomics. Proteomics is the study of the interaction of proteins, which are the products of the actions of our genes. Gene codes for proteins, and proteins then exert their biologic effects and act as the building blocks for our bodies. This field has great potential to aid in treating osteoarthritis because it can be used to identify early biomarkers for osteoarthritis before joint damage has occurred. Biomarkers can put us ahead of the curve by allowing us to predict a patient's risk of developing the disease before the onset of symptoms. While there are about 100,000 genes in the human DNA, there are more than 1 million different proteins in the body that interact in complex ways. The technologies involved in studying large groups of proteins include those of mass spectrometry, electron microscopy, electrophoresis, and chip-related experiments. With these techniques, proteins that are unique to osteoarthritic patients can be identified by mass spectrometry and two-dimensional electrophoresis. Their potential as useful biomarkers, as well as their specific roles in the disease process, can be further studied in this way. Metabolomics. Metabolomics is the study of how nutrients affect metabolic changes, which can be studied through the emerging technologies of high-resolution nuclear magnetic resonance imaging, commonly known as MRI and NMR. In metabolomics, large groups of proteins can be studied simultaneously in order to shed new light into their interactions. For instance, with the use of NMR, analysis is being done of the different effects on our metabolism of a variety of nutritional treatments. Using this technology, the events of nutraceuticals on our internal body chemistry can be studied. Metabolomics and the use of NMR will be beneficial in unraveling these complex interactions. Using chemical pattern recognition, NMR nuclear magnetic resonance is already being used to differentiate between disease states and normal states, and in the case of people suffering from cardiovascular disease and multiple as in the case of people suffering from cardiovascular disease and multiple sclerosis. Some thoughts about the future of the medical treatment of osteoarthritis and what must be done differently. The nutritional strategies and healthy habits outlined in this book are more powerful than any laboratory-designed drug in treating and preventing osteoarthritis. Medicine's successes in saving lives by the early diagnosis of disease, such as cancer, and heroic surgical procedures, such as joint replacement and brain surgery, have received a large amount of media attention. Similar advancements have been made in treating and preventing the major chronic and degenerative diseases. This is because medicine's current way of attacking chronic diseases such as osteoarthritis with the use of drugs is flawed. Drugs have many unwanted side effects and are very costly. Furthermore, they do nothing to address the underlying causes of osteoarthritis. Why then are they so commonly used? This can be answered by realizing that medical doctors function under a set of beliefs and prejudices that have been reinforced through their extensive education. This is what is referred to as a paradigm. In the current medical paradigm, physicians are trained to only treat the symptoms of osteoarthritis with the use of anti-inflammatory drugs, painkillers, and steroid injections. Physicians must adopt a more holistic and integrative approach in treating osteoarthritis by incorporating the many new and exciting scientific discoveries of nutritional science and genetics outlined in this book. There exists a lag in medicine between the time basic science knowledge becomes available and when these concepts are incorporated into a doctor's everyday practice and in treating disease. This is the case in the treatment of osteoarthritis, where new research in nutrition and genetics has not been appropriately included in the doctor's armamentarium to fight the disease. Unfortunately, physicians spend too much time writing prescriptions for drugs to treat the symptoms of the disease rather than addressing their underlying causes. This results in patients, often the elderly, taking an excessive number of drugs that often have very serious side effects. Nutritional influences our genes and our hormonal state in powerful ways that translate to either good or bad health, depending on the choices we make. Proper nutrition is good medicine. Organized medicine must adopt the scientific discoveries of nutritional science and incorporate them into clinical practice in order to fight osteoarthritis more effectively and relieve the pain and suffering of its victims. Conclusion. Proteomics, genomics, and metabolomics have great potential in the field of nutritional science and osteoarthritis research. These and other discoveries will give us the ability to study interactions of nutrients and inflammatory disease compounds at the molecular level and to determine their effects on our genes and cartilage. These newly emerging technologies provide great hope for unraveling the many debilitating diseases of our time. Overall, a more holistic approach is needed in approaching diseases such as osteoarthritis that will better incorporate new basic scientific findings into clinical practice in order to treat and eventually cure them. Okay, we read the whole book, yay! But what I do recall is that I read about half the glossary, and my throat is just too dry and wretched to read the glossary right now. And I don't remember exactly where I left off. I lost my bookmarker, but I do have green tea. Woo! So I would love to talk to Peter Bales and see where his mind went after writing this book. Like, what new discoveries did he have? What new realizations? If anybody can find Peter Bales, knows his latest, maybe send me a YouTube lecture. That would be really cool. And let's just say the end of the glossary, maybe we left off at M, just say, or H. I think I maybe only read, I'm thinking about 4 pages of glossary. Quite a lot of glossary to study. Oh my, yeah, it would be really helpful to study that at a later time. I would love to, ideally.